After this Nama Sankirtan, before we submit today's prayers at the holy feet of Bhagwan, we have been we have been sharing a few drops from the ocean of Bhagwan's Leela. Each drop is a very deep experience of a devotee where the presence of Bhagwan has been intensely felt at the chanting of his Nama. And by sharing someone else's experience with other people, we have been reliving that experience. And this reliving gives us not only joy, but some food for thinking also, which is what probably Bhagwan wants. Now here is an experience of a devotee by name Shri Vinayagam from Uttampalayam. He was living in Tirunelveli with his wife and 2 daughters. And then on promotion transfer, he came to a place called Uttampalayam, and then he got busy with his work. The summer holidays came. His wife and the 2 daughters had left for their relative's place. The house was locked. So over the phone, he would be discussing the problems of the household, the family, with his wife. They had yearned hard and bought some jewels, gold jewels. And then at one time, they had to mortgage it for certain interest. First, they had put it in the bank. They had mortgaged it in the bank itself. And with great, great difficulty, they had to save money with great difficulty to get them out of the bank. After that, again, they were in need of money. So 2 jewels have been pledged again for interest. After that, one day, when they were discussing, the husband and wife discussing it over the phone, they found out that there were 12 sovereigns missing. It's a big number, and it was hard-earned money, and they had to go through so many difficulties to buy those jewels. And the jewels were of help also in their times of difficulties. And suddenly they found 12 sovereigns missing. One can imagine what agony they must have gone through. The wife was very insistent. The wife was saying that where they had mortgaged, that is a friend of Shri Vinayagam. She said, probably we gave all that to him. Probably the 12 sovereigns also are with the friend. So she had that suspicion. And they had to verify with a friend. And the friend said he did not have those jewels at all. He denied instantly, outright. He did not possess them. They did not give them those 12 sovereigns. Only some other jewels for mortgaging, for which they got the money from him. But all the same, the friend was also pained that they should suspect him. So he was also very agitated. And the wife was insisting that the husband should go to Tirunelveli, their house, the locked house, and then ransack the whole place. Whether they were still there or they were missing. So she went on insisting, but it happened that he was very much engaged. He was busy with his office, and some senior staff was retiring and there was some party. So he could not go immediately, but as soon as the party was over, about 10 o'clock in the night, he pushed out. He reached Tirunelveli at 1:30 in the night, the middle of the night. And his friend, who came to know that he was coming to search, he also joined because he wanted to be free from the suspicion. And he was also hoping they could find those jewels there. He also started to search for it along with his friend. So, Shri Vinayagam, he ransacked the whole bureau and the other places in the house where they could have possibly put them. It was 1 hour. But then, the minute, right from the time they started suspecting, right from the time they knew that the 12 sovereign jewels are missing, the only way out for them, the only refuge was Bhagwan's Nama, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. So from then onwards, Shri Vinayagam was chanting and chanting and chanting Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama. So at 10 o'clock when he started also, he was chanting, and all through the bus journey, he was chanting and chanting and chanting. And after entering the house, while searching for the jewels, he was chanting ceaselessly, intensely, begging and begging and begging Bhagwan to give those 12 sovereigns, the hard-earned sovereigns, back. 1 hour, he was 1.5 hours perhaps, he was searching and searching, but in vain. But still, he did not give up the Nama chanting. He continued with great faith, hope, desperately, chanting, chanting, chanting. And suddenly the thought came to him that he had kept all the receipts of the mortgage in one small box. And he found a small box in one of the lower plates of the bureau. Suddenly it struck him that it may be there, it might be there. So immediately he opened, and to his surprise and delight, below the receipts, he found all those 12 sovereign jewels sitting there. Imagine the joy that he would have found at that moment. And imagine his friend's joy was no less, because he was also free. The wife was suspecting him, so both were so joyful, and they thanked Bhagwan heartily. So at times like this, in life, something or the other happens, some suffering or the other happens, and only people in that situation would know the agony they go through, the agitation, the tension. And God is our only refuge at these times. You cannot turn to anybody for relief. So we have to resort to the name of God, just as these people did. They turned to Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama, chanted and chanted ceaselessly, and finally paid. It worked. Bhagwan gave them back. But there is another incident that I remember. Once in that small veranda of Sannadhi Street house, a lady had come, an elderly lady, who started to cry as soon as she came. And she kept on crying. Bhagavan was trying to pacify her. And then we were all chanting the name. So Bhagavan turned to us and then told her to join the chanting. He said, chant Yogi Ramsuratkumar with these people. She tried, poor lady, but then soon she was swallowed by her own agony and she could not proceed. Again Bhagavan after some time told her to try this nama. And she would join us, but only to break into sobs very soon. And this went on for quite some time. And then finally, Bhagwan turned to me and said, look, she's crying because her jewels, she had kept it somewhere in the house, and when she started searching, she could not find them. She lost them, and naturally, she was crying over. So Bhagavan was saying, she is crying for the lost jewels. This beggar is trying to give her a crown jewel. She is unable to accept it. She is completely wallowed in her misery. The loss of jewels, the golden jewels. Here this beggar is trying and trying and trying. The crown jewels, he meant the Nama. Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama, he called it the crown jewel, which would of course get those jewels back, the golden jewels back. At the same time, it would transform. It would transform us to go beyond all this. But poor lady, she was so lost. But that day I understood what he meant, what his statement. He was saying, this beggar is trying to give crown jewel, the way he described the Nama. Now this Nama, this crown jewel, is with all of us. Even now. And we have to keep on chanting and chanting. We cry. It is very natural we cry when we lose things which are very dear to us, which are precious to us. But there is something much more precious than these jewels. That is our own identity, our real identity. Bhagavan was saying that people call this beggar God. They do not know they are also God. Everyone is an avatar. Everyone is God. That's the only truth. So our true identity is this identification with God. To become one with God. To become God. And many of us do not even know. We spend the whole life not knowing about this. to find this identity which we have lost. The crown jewel, Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama, is available with a promise that it would bring about inner and outer transformations. So even when we live this worldly life, we cannot help crying to our heart's content when we lose the jewels or someone who is very dear to us. It has to be like that. We have to. It is very, very natural. There's nothing wrong about it. We have to chant the name to get our happiness and peace again. All that is okay. At the same time, we should remember that we have lost the greatest treasure, the treasure of our true identity, that I am God. That this identification with the body is Maya, is illusory. This illusion must go from us, and we must get back to our true being, true state of being. Through small, small leelas in everybody's life, Bhagwan is trying to make people realize this, that Nama chanting gives us back that which is lost. Then we should take it. If you keep on chanting this name ceaselessly with faith, then it would get us back, it would get back our lost identity also, the true identity, the identification with God, the oneness with God. And this is what we all have to seek. Bhagwan had said often that God has given us this body and put life in this. And because of this life, we are able to breathe our in-breath and out-breath. But who put this breath? The one who put this breath, the one who gave life in this body, life to this body, is also inside. The Supreme God is right inside. Your every breath is rooted in Him. It's because He is inside and He has put the breath, the breathing inside you, you are able to be alive. So, we should know that without Him, without the Supreme, the presence of the Supreme inside, we would not be able to think, we would not be able to see, we would not be able to hear, we would not be able to do any of those things that we have been doing. As long as there is life in the body, the eyes see, the ears hear, the mouth speaks, the legs carry you around, the limbs do work for you, and above all, the brain is able to think. The minute life is gone from the body, your brain is useless. Your heart is useless. You cannot think, you cannot speak, you cannot move 1 millimeter. So what is the true life of this body? It is the presence of the divine. And that we are. Our original identity is that which gives life to our life in the body. So to get back to this, we have to purify our mind. We have to purify. What is the impurity here? The identification with the body. I am so and so. I'm a woman. I'm a man. I have these parents. I have my family. I have my language. I have my religion. I've got my country. All this I and mine They belong to this ego, which is identification with the body. But what can the body do? What can the ego do? The ego must know that the ego itself has been put there by the divine that's present inside us. And to get back to the state of the divinity, we have to give up this ego completely. What does the ego do? Anger, grief, jealousy, fear. On all that follow this. Now these are all dirt, the dirt of the mind. The more and more we keep chanting the name, there'll be less and less fear, there'll be less and less anger, there'll be less and less fault-finding tendencies. When Sharadama was in her deathbed and the attendant who was looking after her, she was very desperate that mother would leave the body any moment. She begged Mother Sharda, "Ma, please give me some advice which I could follow all my life so that I would have peace of mind." Then Mother Sharada said, "Do not find fault with anybody. If you want peace of mind in life, do not find fault with anybody." This was her last advice. So the ego's job is to blame others for one's own failures. The ego will not find its own fault. If it finds its own fault, it will get transformed. But the tendency is outward, and therefore it will find fault, it will discover fault of the others, and make their life miserable and add to the dirt of the mind. But Nama chanting, what does it do? It cleanses one of all this dirt. It brings a sattvic mind. Sattvic mind means there will be less and less anger, less and less fear, there will be less and less grief, there will be more peace, love and joy. And once the mind gets purified, it's only one jump, a small jump to our true identity, the identity of being one with God, identity of being God. So this is what Bhagavan was indicating that day when he said, this beggar is trying to give her the crown jewel, whereas she is crying for the lost golden jewels. So let us remember this always, so that the crown jewel will give back our lost identity. And that, what does it mean? Eternal bliss. There will be no anger, no fear, no grief, no jealousy. You would begin to see God in everything. It's God who has become all these forms. It is He who has become a worm. It's He who has become an ant. It's He who has become the birds and the plants. You and me. It is one God putting on the costumes of all those creatures and playing our roles. We don't really exist. Even our role is being played by Him who is inside us, who has put life in us, who is activating even your ego. So to get to know this truth, it is essential that we connect with God all the time. And the easiest, fastest, and highest is Nama chanting. Nama or Nami, they are one and the same. So when you chant the name, the Nami is present. And the presence of Nami, even as we sang this 1 hour Nama Sankirtan, Bhagavan was with us, alive. So let us remember again and again his statement, this beggar is trying to give her the crown jewel, but she prefers to cry for her lost jewels. We shall submit our today's prayer at the feet of Bhagwan here.